The House of the Lantern in Lichtensteig. From the vision to the reconstruction. At the beginning of 2000, when I was 33 years old, a vision, or let's say a very special dream, showed me landscapes, situations with people, and something that felt like a large house or an extraordinary place. This was accompanied by a feeling of incomprehensible beauty and a feeling of finally being at home that I had never known before, and yet was so familiar to me that from then on I felt a longing and search for it. Although these kinds of dreams come without instructions and rational thoughts about them generate more doubt than courage, I set off anyway, because at some point I simply realized that I had nothing left but this deep longing. After 6 years, I ended up in this property in Lichtensteig in December 2006, knowing only that this was now this big house. The basic idea crystallized in the first few weeks. A place of humanity, in German Menschlichkeit, accessible to all people. A house that represents the human being itself and thus reminds the residents and guests of their very own essence. A house that can show everyone their deeper and fundamental truth. So I called the house Haus zur Laterne, Ort der Menschlichkeit. The lantern as a symbol of the human being, the light inside that shines into the world and, depending on the colors and patterns on the glass, makes the world appear to us and influences it. I divided the house into 3 levels: earth, heart, and spirit. So much for the basic idea. But now it was time to find out what such a house would look like in concrete form, what kind of spaces would be created, and what experiences people would have inside them. This was the priority during the first 6 years until 2012. A summarizing text that I wrote after the first year of House of the Lantern shows what I was confronted with. By making my own home, and therefore my privacy, public, and saying that this was a place of humanity, Ort der Menschlichkeit, many people came. From Lichtensteig, from the Toggenburg, from many parts of Switzerland, from young to old. Whatever needs they had, worries and problems, philosophies and concepts of life, ideas and dreams, I listened to them. Whatever expectations and hopes these people had, I didn't initially know and often remained hidden from me even later. Of course, I was aware that exposing myself and my life, as well as my private home in this way, provided an ideal canvas for many speculations and projections. What people viewed in a place of humanity and made of it, I was able to observe every day during the first year. Some people who came, for example, saw my home as a place for difficult young people. So I hosted these young people. But quickly, those who brought them to me demanded regulations, special funding, a care place permit, a written concept, psychological supervision, and so on, which I refused, since my intention was, and is still, different. I repeatedly made it clear that it was a misunderstanding to believe that I had ever intended to open an institution, an association, or something similar, which was connected to the house or how I lived in it. Nor was I intending to set up a therapeutic institution, a foster home, assisted living for problematic young people or marginalized people, a socio-pedagogical residential group, or anything else like that. Quite the opposite. I also made it clear, time and time again, that I had never intended to make money out of my home, a place of humanity. Since I chose to be available to everyone around the clock, and therefore had no time to earn money, I lived solely from private contribution, food, and whatever else people gifted to me. Maybe because living such a life is unthinkable for most people, speculation arose about so-called hidden, malicious, or even unethical motives. Mistrust and fear grew, although anyone could come along and see for themselves. Other people came, many young people between 19 and 35. Some of those young people called themselves freaks. I welcomed them too, and gave them the same consideration and attention as all the other people. They also told me about their version of what it means to be human, their worries and hardships, what they thought was right and wrong, what explanation of the world they had. They began to come and go. As a matter of course, at my great astonishment, they regarded me as one of their own, a freak, and my home as a freak community, as it quickly began to look like. As a result, there were several people in the town who regarded my home as an unacceptable disgrace to the town, due to the often provocative behavior of these people. I could do nothing but make it clear that these people are equal beings and that my home remains open to all humans. There were also people who called themselves spiritual healers or therapists. I opened my home to them too, without prejudice, but made it clear that I was not interested in money-making or concepts of faith, but in developing everyone's inherent capacity for compassion, for humanity, Menschlichkeit. But here too, I was confronted with demands regarding my home that would perhaps make sense if I intended a esoteric New Age center, a religious community, a sect, cult, or a spiritual retreat center. But since this has never been, nor is it now, my intended goal, it was not an option for my home. There were also people who saw in my home a place of openness, fearlessness, a place of human values, inspiration and security, a place of music and art. And some came who recognized in a place of Menschlichkeit, like myself, a home. But for some reason unknown to me, these very people were unable to register with the municipality. The city mayor suggested that I run a house somewhere else and that we should swap our house for a house somewhere in a nature reserve and leave the town. He also apparently assumed that I wanted to run an institution or something similar. An operating concept for the property was a requirement for people who wanted to live with me to be able to register. But the only concept for my house is home. I informed the city mayor thereof. I also pointed out to him that he was breaking the law because everyone living in Switzerland is obliged to register with the municipality where they live. To clear up any misunderstandings, I wrote him an open letter explaining that the entire Haus zur Laterne was my home. To the best of my knowledge, is what I live at home not subject to any conceptual obligation and is generally described as privacy. It is also not a criminal act to welcome people into my home, to give them something to drink and eat, to listen to them impartially, and to give them time, attention, and compassion. There are no human, ethical, social, cultural, or even legal obligations that prohibit me from making my home a place of humanity. There are also no laws that could demand an institutional framework for my life or my home. In December 2007, the local council decided that people could finally register without a concept. Many people demanded rules, a boss or an institutional framework for my home. I should make rules for people, then enforce them with discipline and authority. No longer allow some people to live with me. A ban on smoking or alcohol. Whatever it was, people demanded this for my home, without apparently being aware of it. But more than anything, it showed me what people make of their version of being human and their own Menschlichkeit. So far, my text from the first year. In the following years, things became a little bit quieter. In 2012, I decided to transform and renovate the house based on the experiences of the first 6 years. This not only required a considerable amount of financial support in the form of an interest-free loan from my family, but also meant that the community life had to be dissolved. I was aware that a time of solitude was now dawning, and that if I reconstructed the house, I would also have to reconstruct myself internally, be it in my basement or in my heart. Since June 1st, 2023, parts of the ground floor in German Erdgeschoss have been fully renovated, the large living room with its kitchen and the small lounge. They are once again open to the public for people to visit, enjoy and celebrate events.